In 1992, in a rural area of South Korea, the topic of sex was considered taboo. However, a woman named Han Jung-suk began selling adult products. The oddly shaped clothing shocked them, and they even thought underwear without a bottom was defective until they realized how easily accessible these items were, challenging their perceptions. Han Jung-suk was an ordinary housewife who had once been crowned Miss Pepper in her youth, thanks to her beauty. Her neighbors envied her good looks, but also pitied her. Her husband was arrogant yet incompetent, leading to a life of poverty for Han Jung-suk. Struggling with rent and unable to afford a new backpack for her son, she had to make do with hand-me-downs from neighbors. To supplement her income, Han Jung-suk took on various part-time jobs. She currently cleaned for a wealthy lady, Oh Gyum-hee, who led a dull life in her hometown after college, becoming almost a servant to her husband and detached from society. Today was payday for Han Jung-suk, a day marked by humility for someone living so cautiously. Her salary was modest, but together with earnings from other jobs, it was just enough to cover the rent. While passing a store, she wanted to check if she could afford a new backpack for her son, but left quietly after counting her money. While cooking, Han Jung-suk casually read a newspaper ad about a job selling sexy lingerie for women from home. The job offered flexible hours, which pleased her, but such products were not popular or accepted in their conservative era, making sales unlikely. Han Jung-suk put the matter aside when her husband came home with bruises, bearing bad news. He had been fired for fighting, and his wages were withheld. This worsened the already poor financial state of their household. With no other option, Han Jung-suk went out to look for more part-time jobs, but faced rejection for various reasons, and returned home disappointed. Her landlady reminded her that today was the rent due date. Han Jung-suk said she would pay in the evening. When she went to take out the rent money from a box, she realized it was missing. The only other person who knew about the money was her husband. Indeed, that night, her drunk husband confessed he had used the money for an investment. Feeling nothing but disappointment, Han Jung-suk remembered the newspaper ad about selling lingerie. She found the company's address and arrived at the building. Although she had considered taking the job, she felt nervous facing it today and planned to leave. Unexpectedly, she ran into Seo Young-bok, a parent of her son's classmate, who also lived cramped in a single room with her family of 6, including 4 children. Like Han Jung-suk, she hoped to improve her life by selling adult products. Seo Young-bok, noticing Han Jung-suk's shyness, pulled her into the company. Inside, the lady explained that their lingerie was more than just underwear. When she pulled back a curtain, a variety of adult products were revealed, startling 3 women into running away. Unfazed, the lady continued her presentation, stating that it was a misconception to think women were uninterested in sex. In fact, women often need a more passionate life. As soon as these words were spoken, 2 more women walked out, leaving only Han Jung-suk and Seo Young-bok. Han Jung-suk stood up to leave, but the lady's next words made her change her mind. She explained that although adult products were not yet mainstream, she had discovered great potential in this industry. She had started engaging with it 30 years ago and now owned her own company with ample savings. The most convincing point was how lucrative it had been for her, which caught Han Jung-suk's attention and sparked a gleam in her eyes. From that moment, Han Jung-suk began her journey in selling adult products, feeling almost as if she were dreaming. The biggest issue now was finding a venue for sales. Han Jung-suk worked for the wealthy Mrs. Oh Gyum-hee, whose house was large enough to meet her needs for a sales venue. She approached Oh Gyum-hee and tentatively asked if she could sell products there. Initially, Oh Gyum-hee, unaware of what Han Jung-suk intended to sell, agreed to help. However, once she realized they were adult products, she immediately refused. Without a venue, Han Jung-suk was worried. Just as she was feeling down and pondering her next steps, a phone call from Oh Gyum-hee brought new hope. Oh Gyum-hee, who had refused earlier that day, now agreed to let Han Jung-suk sell at her house. It turned out that after Han Jung-suk left, Oh Gyum-hee had prepared a lavish dinner, expecting her husband to return soon. By 9:30 p.m., her husband finally came home. Oh Gyum-hee complained about his late return and lack of communication, but her husband was wrapped up in his own matters, ignoring her feelings. It took some effort, but Oh Gyum-hee finally made her husband realize something was amiss. Her husband remarked that she stayed home all day without socializing with anyone. This comment changed Oh Geum-hee's perspective. Her first step towards change was a new hairstyle. Oh Geum-hee arrived early at the salon, hoping the manager would recommend a style for her, as she had a meeting to attend and wanted an appropriate hairstyle. Upon hearing about the sexy lingerie sales meeting at her house, the salon manager, Lee Ju-ri, showed immediate interest and asked if she could attend. Lee Ju-ri suggested a trendy shortcut for Oh Geum-hee. However, just then, an unexpected guest arrived. Her husband was the president of the Royal Club, which Oh Geum-hee's husband wanted to join. The president's wives had always had a rivalry, openly disliking each other. Unaware of their relationship, Lee Ju-ri, seeing their warm greetings, mistakenly thought they were close friends and asked the president's wife if she would also attend the meeting tonight. Meanwhile, Han Jung-suk began her secretive actions to prevent her family from finding what she carried. She hid the items in her pocket and sneaked out like a thief. But the more cautious she was, the more likely problems arose. Overjoyed, she left her pocket on the bus. The contents were crucial to Han Jung-suk's plans. Fortunately, she spotted a man driving nearby and desperately pleaded with him to chase the bus. After persistent urging, the man sped after the bus with Han Jung-suk. They caught up and found nothing was missing. Relieved, Han Jung-suk went to thank the man, but accidentally fell into his arms, scattering the adult products from her backpack all over. Han Jung-suk ran to Oh Geum-hee's house, only to find it packed with people. Oh Geum-hee asked if they could sell only lingerie today, but Han Jung-suk refused. She believed that explaining clearly would avoid any embarrassment. Soon, Han Jung-suk and Seo Young-bok carried a clothes rack to the crowd, who were all staring wide-eyed in shock. Everyone was surprised, except for Lee Ju-ri, who was excited as if she had found treasure. Although Oh Geum-hee had informed everyone it was a lingerie sale, the neighbors thought the items did not look like lingerie. Some even hung them around their necks. The club president's wife thought a panty without a back was defective. When they heard from Seo Young-bok about the design and use of these items, they were terrified. However, the real shock came when Han Jung-suk took a deep breath, seeming very determined, and pulled out something resembling a microphone from her pocket. Once everyone realized what it was, the situation became frenzied. The sale ended quickly. Han Jung-suk had not expected any sales today, yet the club president's daughter wanted to buy a microphone, and Lee Ju-ri started picking out lingerie styles. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. It was the club president's wife, who had reported an improper party. The two police officers who came to investigate included the man who had helped Han Jung-suk chase after the bus earlier. After their inspection, they found no suspicious items. Just as they were relieved, Oh Geum-hee's husband came home and kicked everyone out, upset about Han Jung-suk selling adult products. News spread throughout the streets and alleys, and naturally, Han Jung-suk's husband found out. He couldn't stand the neighbors' gossip. Although Han Jung-suk didn't give up, their selling venue fell through. The four sisters came together and agreed to help Han Jung-suk find a new venue and sell together. Han Jung-suk made her first fortune from adult products and wanted to share the joy with her husband. However, when she returned home, she found him cheating. Already overwhelmed by life, she broke down and wandered the streets drunk, where Detective Kim Do-hyun saw her. Kim Do-hyun knew about Han Jung-suk's business and listened to her troubles. However, Kim's first impression of Han Jung-suk was that she was frivolous, so he did not take her seriously. In 1992, adult products were not yet popular. Salespeople like Han Jung-suk couldn't get support from their families. However, Seo Young-bok's husband was different. He supported her after learning she was selling adult products. Seo Young-bok, a mother of four, sold adult products to change her life, and her husband saw no shame in it. Conversely, Oh Geum-hee's husband was less optimistic. He not only stopped Oh Geum-hee from using their home as a sales venue, but also tried to prevent her from associating with Han Jung-suk and others. Meanwhile, Han Jung-suk and Seo Young-bok were selling products in a women's bathhouse. Seo Young-bok engaged the women by discussing long-term marriage and suggesting how men might react to the products, likening it to a wolf pouncing like in the old days. These women had been married for over 20 years. Seo Young-bok posed a question. Who do you think your husbands consider the most beautiful woman in the world? She explained that the longer couples live together, the more mundane the days become, and men slowly stop seeing their wives as women. This, she suggested, could lead to thoughts of infidelity. Her words struck a chord with Han Jung-suk, who was already heartbroken and lost the drive to sell, resulting in a failed first attempt at selling. Han Jung-suk blamed herself, but Seo Young-bak believed that starting is always hard. However, she noted that selling in their current way might never bring in big money, so they needed to keep trying and find new methods. Han Jung-suk knew that Lee Ju-ri's hair salon had high foot traffic, so she asked her to promote their products while working with clients. Promotion was just a matter of speaking up, and since Lee Ju-ri was also interested in selling adult products, she readily agreed. Lee Ju-ri's comments then sparked a new idea in Han Jung-suk. Lee Ju-ri mentioned the need for thorough preparation, such as understanding the selling points and user experiences of the hair dyes in her shop before selling them to customers. Han Jung-suk called Seo Young-bak to her home to start translating the product manuals. At the time, there were no local suppliers of adult products in Korea. All products were imported, so the instructions were all in English. Both Han Jung-suk and Seo Young-bak, having limited education, struggled with the translation. Despite their efforts, much was still lacking. Suddenly, Han Jung-suk thought of someone highly educated, Oh Gum-hee, who never imagined that her English skills would one day be in demand. Oh Gum-hee asked Han Jung-suk if the adult product had transported her to a wonderful world. Han Jung-suk promised to tell her the next day after trying it herself. Experience of the product brought Han Jung-suk long-missed joy. In the police station, 4 detectives discussed the village's most troublesome individuals, with Han Jung-suk's husband topping the list. The captain mentioned Han Jung-suk's multiple jobs for her family. While some thought selling adult products was shameful, the captain viewed it as a necessity for living. This changed Kim Do-hyun's perception of Han Jung-suk. Kim, sent by higher authorities, was thought to be just another detective dealing with minor rural issues, but he harbored a significant secret that concerned the entire village. The 3 sisters gathered eagerly to hear from Han Jung-suk about her experience with the product. Shyly, Han Jung-suk gave a thumbs up. Her confidence in selling adult products boosted. Riding on this enthusiasm, she pleaded with Oh Gyum-hee to use her place for another sale. With Oh Gyum-hee's support, Han Jung-suk quickly involved Lee Ju-ri, and soon guests arrived at Oh Gyum-hee's house. Oh Gyum-hee served high-quality tea to 6 guests, while Han Jung-suk demonstrated the products and handled sales, emphasizing that purchases were voluntary. To help guests better understand the products, Oh Gyum-hee drew the curtains, revealing models Fukuyo and Suri in sensuous attire that highlighted the fabric's feel. Imagining their husbands' reactions to seeing them in such clothes, the guests eagerly made purchases. Sales went smoother than expected. Suri then placed a microphone in front of each guest, fearing they might be hesitant about the novelty. Han Jung-suk introduced a familiar celebrity to reassure them, saying even celebrities use these products. However, when a plump woman learned the price was 20,000 won, she tossed the microphone aside, commenting that she'd rather spend that money on kidneys for her husband. A thin woman retorted that even with kidneys, her husband might not return to his former vigor, and the cost of health supplements could be even higher. These older women hadn't felt their youthful sensations in a long time. Encouraged by others, they quickly bought all the products. To celebrate, Oh Gyum-hee planned a meal for everyone, but her husband called, demanding she dress up to meet the chairwoman. Tired of being ordered around, Oh Gyum-hee hung up and went to the restaurant with her sisters to celebrate. While they happily chatted, a mistress appeared with Han Jung-suk's husband. The mistress shamelessly approached Han Jung-suk alone, asking her not to disclose what she had seen to her man, who was Han Jung-suk's friend. Han Jung-suk chose to remain silent. However, Seo Young-bak and Suri, overhearing from the restroom, learned of Han Jung-suk's situation. The mistress entered the restroom, followed by the 4 women. Seo Young-bak, seeing the water was too clear, stirred it with a mop used in the restroom before pouring it. Oh Gyum-hee hadn't felt as happy as she did today in a long time. After returning home, she put on the sexy lingerie she bought, fueled by the alcohol. While admiring her figure, her husband suddenly came home. He was humiliated because Oh Gyum-hee had not attended an event, blaming her change on her association with Han Jung-suk and her group. Oh Gyum-hee finally spoke her mind, expressing her desire to start her own business rather than being confined to home life. Her conservative husband was shocked, but as Oh Gyum-hee talked about herself, he pounced on her like a hungry wolf. The next day, Oh Gum-hee made her husband a simple breakfast. At first, he was dissatisfied until Oh Gum-hee mentioned that only those who are not satisfied would use delicious food to ensure better performance next time. After experiencing the joy brought by adult products, his opposition softened significantly, and he began to agree with the idea of Oh Gum-hee selling them. Meanwhile, Han Jung-suk faced trouble at her residence, where someone had painted a large "sex" in red. Elsewhere, Kim Do-hyun rented a secluded house. In its basement, the walls were covered with detailed information about everyone in the village, suggesting that there were secrets hidden within the community. Neighbors believe such incidents occur because she sells shameful products. Only Han Jung-soo knows if she is shameless. She sells adult products to support her son alone and afford the rent. Despite gossip, she won't give up. Han Jung-soo never wanted her mother to know about her job, thinking she could hide it by cleaning off paint. But her mother found the place first and threw everything Han Jung-soo was selling on the floor, considering them filthy. Moreover, she believed this was why her son-in-law didn't come home. Han Jung-soo straightforwardly confessed her husband's terrible actions, hoping for her mother's understanding and telling her not to worry. Unexpectedly, her mother didn't show concern, but questioned her about divorcing her husband and called her disgusting. These words deeply hurt Han Jung-soo, but she was helpless. The landlady called the police, hoping they could find the vandal. The detective in charge, Do-hyun, met Han Jung-soo after she bought paint, speculating that someone unhappy with her, like a rival or neighbor, could be responsible. It was almost her son's school dismissal time, and Han Jung-soo wanted to quickly remove the graffiti. With Do-hyun's help, it was cleaned before her son came home. In the evening, Seo Young-bok called Han Jung-soo, telling her a knitting shop owner offered their store for use right before closing, and hoped Han Jung-soo and Oh Gum-hee would visit the next afternoon. Han Jung-soo didn't want to miss this opportunity. Since her mother stopped helping with her son, Han Jung-soo had to give up and announced she might not be able to sell for a while. Seo Young-bok, already caring for 4 children, couldn't offer much help. Fortunately, the next day while picking up her son from school, Han Jung-soo discovered that Lee Ju-ri's child was classmates with her son. Lee Ju-ri, who hadn't yet started selling adult products, quickly agreed to help care for Han Jung-soo's son upon learning about her situation. With Lee Ju-ri's assistance, Han Jung-soo, Seo Young-bok, and Oh Gum-hee managed successful sales. While passing a street stall, Oh Gum-hee, who had lived under her husband and mother-in-law's control for 50 years, couldn't resist and indulged in the delicious food, savoring her newfound freedom. At that moment, the lover's husband unexpectedly showed up, asking Han Jung-soo to host a sales event at their house the next day as a special birthday celebration for his mistress, hoping to enhance their relationship. Unaware of his wife's true character, Han Jung-soo declined, but Seo Young-bok stepped forward and offered to go in her place, promising Han Jung-soo to drain their wallets. However, the next day, as Seo Young-bok was preparing to sell products to a lady, she was chased by the family's dog, resulting in a fall. Frustrated, she informed Han Jung-soo that she couldn't attend the mistress's house after all, having already promised another friend to sell products. With no choice, Han Jung-soo had to proceed, planning to leave her son with Suk Lee, but found her too busy with her business. Han Jung-soo had no choice but to take her son with her to the mistress's house. The mistress was unaware of Han Jung-soo's planned visit and initially wanted her to leave. However, Han Jung-soo decided to stay, thinking she could make money and shouldn't care about the mistress's opinions. While the man took his son to the cinema, Han Jung-soo began selling her products. She learned from the crowd that the mistress had always claimed she was not interested in men, which is why she hadn't been intimate with her own husband. But Han Jung-soo knew just how despicable this person was. The sales event ended quickly, and Han Jung-soo sold many products. Suddenly, the man rushed back home, saying his son had disappeared while buying popcorn. Han Jung-soo immediately called the police and went to ask her mother if she had seen the boy. Instead of comforting her, her mother blamed her for taking the child to sell disgraceful items. Trying to stay calm, Han Jung-soo returned to the police car, but Do-hyun had seen everything. After some time, they finally found the son at a place where his father had once worked. The boy had gone there missing his father. Do-hyun spent much of the night with Han Jung-soo, even buying her band-aids for the facial wounds her mother had given her. At the end of the month, payday arrived. Han Jung-soo and Seo Young-bok received their salaries from selling adult products, which was more than they had ever earned from any previous job. The first thing Han Jung-soo did with her paycheck was buy a new backpack for her son, while Seo Youngbok also bought items for her children. It was the first time they felt so happy shopping, though it was just the beginning. They firmly believed that their lives would get better. However, the happy moments did not last long. When Han Jung-soo returned home, she saw her mother and her father with another woman. Despite her mother having done hurtful things to her, Han Jung-soo still offered her an umbrella. Her mother's resistance to adult products was not a rejection of Han Jung-soo's sales, but rather a dislike for the flashy clothes. That year, at 32, her mother also had a desire for beauty. But her life changed drastically when her husband brought another woman home and settled her there. The woman, confident in the man's affection, bullied Han Jung-soo's mother relentlessly. Unable to bear it any longer, her mother fought back, only to be slapped by her own husband. Fed up with the indignity, she left with her children and raised them alone ever since. Lee Ju-ri joined the adult product sales because the president's wife raised the rent on her hair salon. The high rent, coupled with her son just starting school, forced her to look for a side job in sales. The four sisters officially began their journey to wealth by each purchasing a batch of adult products. They gathered at Oh Gyum-hee's house to discuss sales strategies. As new saleswomen, none of them knew how to start, and though they agreed to share ideas and focus on discussions, each fell into deep thought. Before their sales journey even began, they encountered difficulties. They decided to give facial massages at Oh Gyum-hee's house, where the masseuse gave Han Jung-soo an idea for sales. The masseuse explained that her company required them to conduct surveys to improve performance and understand customer preferences and interests. Han Jung-soo shared the idea of doing market research with everyone and received unanimous approval. The four sisters took the massage shop's survey to a print shop for revisions and printing. Then, they split up to take action. They fantasized about making a big impact with this method, but encountered setbacks everywhere. Oh Gyum-hee chose a friend who owned a clothing store as her first target, only to unexpectedly find the president's wife there. Upon learning that Oh Gyum-hee had joined the adult product sales, she declared she would keep her distance and also spread the word about their estrangement. Han Jung-soo approached four women picking fruit and explained her purpose. Adult products were something people generally avoided, and now she was bringing them up directly, resulting in everyone making excuses to leave. Fortunately, Han Jung-soo encountered Do-hyun, sneaking up behind him and giving him quite a scare. She pleaded with Do-hyun to help fill out the survey. Although Do-hyun was reluctant, he could not resist Han Jung-soo's persistent requests. However, if he knew the questions on Han Jung-soo's survey, he would have refused outright. Initially embarrassed, he slowly agreed, surprising even himself. Meanwhile, business was bleak for Oh Gyum-hee, Seo Youngbok, and Lee Ju-ri. They did not want to dishearten Han Jung-soo, so they decided to conduct the survey together. The three visited a pork shop where the owner, having previously purchased adult products, was not opposed to the idea. She asked Oh Gyum-hee and her company to wait a moment for her. However, while waiting for the owner, two unexpected visitors arrived and they were discussing. The graffiti culprit at Han Jung-soo's house has been found by Do-hyun. The perpetrator was the owner of a hardware store who couldn't handle his wife purchasing some products and took it upon himself to spray the graffiti. The incident spread throughout the neighborhood. Two local women agreed with the hardware store owner's actions and even said that Han Jung-soo deserved it. Hearing their continuous insults, the three sisters' anger peaked and they confronted them, but were embarrassingly defeated. Before the fight, Seo Youngbok was the most aggressive and stood at the front. But during the fight, she hid behind Oh Gyum-hee, resulting in Oh Gyum-hee getting a bloody nose. All four sisters were struggling with their progress. At night, when Han Jung-soo returned home, she overheard neighbors gossiping about them, which saddened her even more. However, Han Jung-soo remained strong and did not give up. Instead, she was even more determined to prove everyone wrong. Since they couldn't physically confront their detractors, they took out their frustrations on a punching bag, which amused Do-hyun. Last night, Seo Youngbok didn't sleep well. Upon hearing this, her husband went out early in the morning to seek revenge for her. Initially, Seo Youngbok feared her husband might do something drastic, but found out he had instead gone to a neighboring town to buy a radish. Han Jung-soo came up with a new idea today: to set up a stall in front of Lee Ju-ri's hair salon, offering free gifts for filling out a survey. With the support of underwear as a promotional item despite most neighbors still being hesitant, many decided to participate in the survey. Today's survey went exceptionally well, even exceeding expectations.